so it looks like we have Stacy on the screen with us. Commissioners, you are interviewing today with Stacy for the hearing examiner position. Gina is printing the copies of the questions right now for you. But the 5 questions were compiled through the interview panel, I think with insight from some of you, and then our recruiter here at Spokane County put these together. So each of you gets a question, a little different styles. So there's not a name assigned to each of these questions. I guess I'll just have you guys go around and each ask a question, and then Stacy, hopefully you'll be able to hear them. We'll just have scripted questions, and then we can wrap up with any of your questions at the end.
Okay, I'm gonna just start though and say welcome and thank you for joining us today. And Commissioner French, I'm gonna make sure if you have the questions or if you would rather just have us move along on the questions.
Yeah, I do not have access to the questions, so I'll leave it up to you to wrestle or do whatever you want to do to find someone to ask my question. That'll be fine. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Just wanted to make sure. So then we will go ahead and start with Commissioner Kearns. We'll start with the first question. And like I said, I just want to say thank you very much. I know the process so far was to go through, there was already another interview stage, so this is the final interview stage at this point in time. So thank you for joining us today, and we will go ahead and get started. So Commissioner Kearns.
Yeah, again, yes, thank you for joining us via Zoom. Could you tell us about your legal background, including your work with the Growth Management Act and SEPA? But then in addition to that, what interests you in the position of hearing examiner for Spokane County?
And you are currently muted, Stacy.
Oh, okay, there we go. I wasn't sure if I was in charge of that or somebody else. So good afternoon. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. And I just want to say I'm excited for you to now be a commission of 5. The Charlotte County, where I work down here in Florida currently, it's a 5-member commission, and I have just found that there's a lot of great dialogue and just broader perspective that comes to the table. So I think you're going to have it really work well for you. I just wanted to start off by saying that. But getting to your question, my legal background is I graduated from law school at Gonzaga University. And then I spent a number of years in private practice, first with Witherspoon Kelly, which is now another law firm. And I was there 8 years. And then I went into a small petite boutique firm of 4 individuals. And I continued to practice real estate, land use, and environmental law with that law firm. So I think in total, I probably spent about 15 years practicing in Spokane County and represented a number of developers, public entities, school districts, did some work for like City of Spokane Valley, City of Liberty Lake, and Airway Heights municipal work. And, came before the Board of County Commissioners on many occasions, including Commissioner French, and just with land use applications of all sorts, and before the hearing examiner, zoning adjuster, and so forth. And so represented individuals in that capacity to help them, go through the process of getting project approval. And then at times, with our comprehensive plan amendments and the concurrent rezones there, we did face challenges to the Growth Management Hearings Board or challenged, other decisions. And so I did represent clients in that capacity as well. And so my experience with the Growth Management Act is kind of just covering all of those scenarios and just, advocating and demonstrating compliance with, the various goals and policies of the GMA as adopted by the county. And of course, when I worked as a land use planner for the county from 1993 to 2000, we were in the midst of, enacting our growth management plans and all the implementing regulations at that time. So it was kind of interpreting the law and then, putting it into planning documents. And I hope that covers everything. I'm happy to expand or answer any follow-ups. I think, was there a question about SEPA as well? Did I miss that part?
It was just your background with GMA and SEPA, but then also just why you want to be the hearing examiner.
Okay, and then so in terms of SEPA, when I was a land use planner, we would analyze and review the environmental checklist that came in with all projects that were subject to SEPA review and weren't otherwise exempt. And then in legal practice, I would assist clients in, compiling the necessary information and completing a checklist, getting any necessary documentation from, experts with expertise in certain areas that are covered by the checklist. And then finally, last but not least, answering your question about why I would want this position. This is something that I actually kind of just kept my eye on over the years. I know that Mike Dempsey served for a very long period, and I've kind of always said, geez, I got to try to watch when he's exiting, and maybe I'll throw my hat in the ring. And Dave Hubert came in, and then there were some transitions that I wasn't aware about. And so now, it's just kind of the timing is such that this position's open, and looking to come back to Spokane. My mother passed away last summer, so I'd like to get back, close to friends and family and so forth. And so the timing is pretty good to make the move. And one of the drivers for being in Florida for the past 5 years was so that, my mom could spend time down here. And I'm happy to answer any more questions or follow up.
Yeah, thank you.
So the next question we had, Ms. Bordahl, is what are the most important elements of the GMA that impact land use within counties? And how would you deal with inconsistencies or conflicts within the act as the hearing examiner?
Well, hopefully I wouldn't have to confront that very often, because I know the staff is very good at, drafting policies, and, ultimately it's up to the board to adopt those policies. But I mean, they're all, they should all have equal weight. But I think certainly the land use element and the housing element, those are, very important, just because they really kind of drive the other elements in terms of like where transportation planning and infrastructure needs to be, capital facilities and things like that. And so I give them all equal weight. And then I think, if you're confronted with an inconsistency, it's just going to depend on the set of circumstances and which one should be afforded more weight just based on the decision that's being presented. So it's just going to be, I guess, a case by case basis how that would apply. But I think just sort of by design, the GMA, it's just inherent conflict. So you have to balance those things as you're applying it, and just look to the facts and the circumstances and expertise of staff and the public input and so forth, and just ultimately just make the best decision based on any prior decisions that the GMA has handed out, or statutory interpretation or anything like that. But it's not, the GMA is not perfect. And each time it gets amended, it probably creates further conflict with something else. And we have the legislatures, of course, to thank for that.
Thank you.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
Okay. Nice to meet you, and thanks for being here. So I
Thank
have
you.
question number 3. So it is, walk us through a time that you had to work through a complex legal issue. What were the outcomes and lessons learned?
Okay, this one's always hard, and I think it was asked before, and I should have tried to think of some more examples in the interim. But everything is, I guess, it's always has its own sort of set of complexities. But just my general strategy when I'm confronting a legal issue is just to get all the background facts, understand the issues from like a 30,000 foot view. So if it's an issue of, say, transportation concurrency, and whether or not levels of service are being maintained for a plat application or something like that. And, just look at, like I said, the 30,000 foot view, sort of outline the facts, do any needed research of case law, and then look to the local codes and what they say on the issue or any type of requirements. And then, as I said, like case law, and that's sort of my strategy. And there's just, through experience, that has worked for me. And I know, like, one of the first things I had to do when I took my position as assistant county attorney for Charlotte County we have a major hotel resort being built in the county, and it's on the water, and the middle of the water body is the dividing line between the county and the city. And so, because this is going to be a very big tax generator, the county was immediately concerned, like, can this be annexed? And so, I mean, it was complicated because it's, of course, there's separation of water body. It's not really contiguous, or is it contiguous? And just having to kind of dive in and figure out, if that could be, annexed. And then, of course, the city didn't have utilities on our side of the water body. So how does that factor in terms of, providing urban services, or, what type of claim could they make to annex this piece of property? And ultimately, we concluded that, yes, it could be annexed because just the water body, it was like essentially treated like a roadway, and it was considered to be contiguous. So, our county commissioners, they just sort of try to keep good relations with the landowner, the developer, so that, they don't seek some sort of voluntary annexation by the city. And likewise, try to keep good relations with the city so that they don't try to initiate, an involuntary annexation. So it's just in that capacity, we just try to give our commissioners the best information and course of action to support their goals and agenda.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so I have question number 4. You've been asked to come prepared with a brief or project that highlights your legal writing ability. And I'm hoping that you were asked for that.
I didn't know that I needed to bring like a written brief, but I can certainly provide that. One of the cases that I'm proud of is, I think it was a 2013 case that went to the Court of Appeals Division 3. And it was involving West Central Development. They were doing a rezone very close to the courthouse. And it was challenged by one of the neighbors. And, we were successful. It went up on appeal a couple of different times, but in 2013, we were successful. And, I independently did all of the drafting. It's like when you're at a larger law firm where I started my legal career, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. So, I mean, I was proud that I handled that all independently, all the legal research and the writing, presented the oral argument on the other, in Division 3 across the state. And, the court sided with our arguments, and it was a successful outcome for the client.
Very good.
And I should be able to find that brief somewhere on my old hard drive.
No, I think
or
we're
certainly from the courts.
Yeah, I'm okay without having it in, a document for us. So thank you very much. I will now let Josh finish with our last question.
All right. And this question is, how do you define success in the hearing examiner's role? And what do you foresee as the biggest challenge for you in this role?
Defining success will, obviously conducting, orderly, fair hearings, and trying to, I think, work with staff to the extent they feel they need, additional tools or training in their preparation of staff reports and presentations to the hearing examiner. And then I'm a very patient person. So just, listening to testimony, asking pertinent questions of, individuals testifying as well as staff. And I know in my prior interview with, Chris Anderson, we chuckled about how old the hearing examiner rules of procedure are. And I think I actually wrote them back in 1996 when I was working at the county as the public hearings manager. And just looking at that to see what kind of improvements can be made to make it more user friendly, or just so people in general are better prepared for, what matters in the decision making. And I think I'm missing part of your question. I think that was just sort of like how I would define success in that. And then clearly, obviously, timely decisions and, decisions that are legally supportable in the event that there's a challenge, that they could be successfully defended by the county prosecutor's office if they're involved. And I think there's a second part, if you can.
Yeah, the second part
restate
was what do you foresee as the biggest challenge for you in this role?
I think it'll just be getting refreshed with what's changed since I left 5 years ago. And in terms of any like new case law, I mean, certainly the board has probably enacted new policies and regulations to implement the comp plan and different things, and just a refresh on that. And, just getting, I guess, accustomed to the technology. I know that there's like a remote option. And I will say that I was very impressed when Matt Zaracore was giving the presentations, because it has come a long way with those slides and the graphics and just the overall how you look on camera and so forth, and just the caliber of the audio and things like that. Because I think when I was a planner back in the 90s, it was microfiche and we were just slapping plastic slides up on a projector. So I'm very impressed with it. It looks like it's very user friendly, and I kind of had a breath of fresh air and relief when I saw how well organized it was from the IT perspective.
Very good. Yes. No, it has changed, and we have made improvements. So it's always a good thing to improve in a better way. So thank you. I'm glad you noticed. And so thank you for spending your time with us today. I think we will be taking this under advisement. We won't be making a decision today, but we'll be taking this under advisement. I'm looking to our HR director to make sure I'm saying the right things. So Ashley, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, so you'll be taking this under advisement. We'll be having a conversation in executive session, and if there is going to be any sort of decision or offer that comes out of that, that would be in a future meeting that we would have that discussion.
Very good. Thank you. So we will not be meeting again until Monday. So just, timing wise, that there wouldn't be any decisions made between now and early part of next week. So I just know,
Okay.
You always like to know, as the one on the other side, to know kind of what the expectations of time are. So this is the end of our meetings for this week. And so then we will take up items on Monday and Tuesday of next week.
Great. And thank you very much for your time and consideration today.
Yeah, no, thank you. And we appreciate you applying and for your time today and your great answers.
All right. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you. You too.
Thank you.
I guess, a little time difference there, so. 6 o'clock. Yeah. Very good. Okay, is there anything else to come before us? No?
No, as Ashley mentioned, should the board want to deliberate and consider the qualifications of an applicant for public employment, that's something you can do under exec session. The appointment process would be done during open session based on what the board collectively decides. So we could do that today while it's fresh in your mind. We can do that next Monday as well, whatever the pleasure of the board is.
I'm good either way. If we want to go ahead and do an executive session today to have a discussion, why we just have had it?
So are there other applicants that we'll be interviewing?
The panel had interviewed, I think, 4 or 5 applicants. This was, usually we like to bring a couple forward to the board to consider. This applicant happened to be by far and away the highest scored by the individuals, and so they felt like this was the best applicant to bring forward to the board at this point in time.
That said, there's a little bit of a caveat that came with it today. So she is, as we know, in Florida. She was planning on moving pretty quickly to Spokane. And then this morning, we learned that her spouse's business didn't sell quite as quickly as they had anticipated. So she's looking at more of a probably 90-day time frame before arriving. So that could change your options. You could still interview candidates 2 and 3 if you so chose. We could if you make a decision and decide that you do want to have her be your candidate, you could do that in executive session today. We could look at, like we've done with a lot of different groups right now, remote work in the interim. So maybe have her be here for the time that we need her here on site for some things with onboarding and maybe some of the larger things that we have coming at us in May, but recognize that we could offer some remote work in the interim until she's here full time. So the board has options on what they want this to look like as to whether or not they would like to have additional interviews with other candidates, or if you would like to talk about her qualifications and then make that decision. That works as well. And that would be an executive session.
Yes, Scott, go ahead, and then I'll comment.
And I'll just give, for the board's refresh, we are currently using the City of Spokane hearing examiner for providing backup coverage as we have the position open. And I believe we are scheduled out through April with the hearing examiner. They've been very accommodating and helping to fill in some of those gaps for us. I've checked with our planning department. It's working well right now. They're going to be in the process of looking at May and June to start scheduling hearings as well, so they'll have a better idea of what the needs and amount of applicants being reviewed and type of applications, and then should we need to continue requesting the City of Spokane's hearing examiner to support, they'll have that conversation with them. So that's also just a backstop for the commissioners to be aware.
Okay. Commissioner French?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to point out for our 2 new commissioners that we operated for 2 years during COVID on a remote situation and had no difficulties in terms of navigating through that. But in addition to that, then we do have backup with the City of Spokane and stuff. So I'm not sure that the timetable. I'd rather have the best candidate, and if we have to wait a couple months for the best candidate, I would rather do that than compromise our situation for a condition that we already have addressed and solved. So thank you.
Thank you. So I feel like we're already starting to talk about the qualifications of a potential public employee, so I'd rather have for any further discussions in executive sessions. So I guess at this point in time, I would say if everyone's amenable, that we go into executive session for, how long do you think? 20 minutes? I would say 20 minutes. Again, the executive session would be to, I'm going to let you say the exact word, Scott, and probably the RCW that goes along with it.
I'm trying to pull mine up on my screen, and I just lost internet.
Oh,
You got it, Chris? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so this is going to be an executive session to discuss evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public office. This is under RCW 4230-110-1G.
okay. We anticipate it for 20 minutes. I would suggest all 5 commissioners. Chris Anderson as the, one of the people that was on the interview panel, Scott Simmons, our CEO, Ashley Cameron as our HR director. And Jeff McMorris was on the interview panel as well? Yeah. Okay. So add Jeff McMorris to that. And it is 3:01. I'm not sure if we anticipate a decision as we come out of executive session or not. No. Okay. So we do not anticipate a decision as we come out of executive session. So that at that point, then we will adjourn for the day. We will sign our documents and adjourn. So it is 3:01. We will be in executive session till 3:21. Thank you. And everyone have a good day, and we will see you back on Monday.